actually is the lead play in our offense.
We ask our YN or a tight end to open up somewhere between 6 feet and 9 feet, get an isolation with the linebacker. Tell the tackle to take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, to drive down on the first man to his inside. If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. If you look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here, and try to run this play in the alley.
What's up, guys? Welcome into Packers Total Access. My name is Clayton. You can check us out on packernet.com. Find me on Twitter at Packers_access. Email us PackersTotalAccess@gmail.com. You can text us 865-658-5824. The text line's been lit up here lately. Appreciate you guys and gals staying connected. Been a lot of fun talking ball as we're doing our third show of the day. Tim been with me all day long. Tim, you're not divorced yet, are you, big dog?
No, man. Still married. We're good.
All right. My wife's in Florida, so I'm off the hook. But yeah. So some people are going, man, how in the world are you finding time to do 3 shows a day? That's what happens when the wife decides she's going to take a vacation. You going too, Clayton? Nah, I'm gonna stay here. I got stuff I need to get done. We need to talk ball. So,
yes,
but no, it's good to see you in here, man. Did you have a good day?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I still got some stuff done in between shows, so I'm still in good standing with the missus. We're okay.
There you go. Just got to stay on top of it, man.
Yes, sir.
Same thing here. Yeah, we like today was fun, man. Did the morning show, did the college football pod. As soon as that wrapped up, got out, did some work on the property. Found time to get in the pool. Like I said, felt hungover by the time we did the mid-afternoon show because I was pool tired. then banged out a nap, got some inside work done, and now we're here to talk ball this evening. So it's going to be a lot.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
I'm going to need one. I'll tell you that. If I don't keep this property in check while Mandy's gone, I'm going to need a doctor when she gets back in town. So let's see. M. Smith 13. I think that's M. Smith. He says, Evening PTA posse, grilling up steaks and listening to Packers. Nothing better, man. That's
Here we go.
That's what I'm talking about, dude. That's what I'm talking about. Jay from State Farm. Clayton carrying the boats. I'm not sure what that means. What do you think that means, Tim? I'm not hip to the kids.
I don't know.
I don't know. I need you to explain, Jay. I'm just a dumb redneck. I'm going to need you to help me out here. But let's do this. While he explains that in the chat, let's give a quick shout out to the smart ones associated with this show here, and that's the good folks over at Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access. Wisconsin-based since 1992, specializing in Packers tickets. They are Wisconsin's largest ticket source, with offices next to Lambeau and in Milwaukee. You can click on the link in the video description. That'll send you to theticketking.com, where you can register for free as a customer and get yourself ready to go in there and shop for your Packers tickets, man. Everything's up and running already. So, again, that's theticketking.com. If you go to ticketking.com, that's going to be the wrong way. It's got to be theticketking.com, right? TheTicketKing.com. Again, Ticket King, the official ticket provider of Packer Fan Total Access. Make sure you show them support for them supporting us. So we really, really appreciate them always sponsoring the show. So, Tim, what I thought we would do this evening, no news broke, obviously. No one in town to the best of my – well, they're probably in town, but no media availability or anything like that when it comes to the team. So I thought we'd just kind of dive into a couple articles and talk some X's and O's. I've gotten a bunch of feedback from people, email, text messages, asking about specifics. You'll hear us talk about specific passing concepts. You'll hear us talk about specific positions, right? Like we've talked about the safety position and some of these hybrid aspects of the safety position, whether you're talking about big nickel or you're talking about, you'll hear me say spur safety, post safety, things like that. I figured we could take a second, dive into the playbook and just kind of illustrate what we're talking about in that regard. We got Jacob joining us now here. Jacob, how you doing, big dog? I like that hat. Look at that hat, how clean, Tim. You kidding me?
I love that. I love that logo. One of my favorites.
Ooh, it is, man. Get it right here.
This is
possum in a dumpster.
The hat's I got the sticker on it. It's like 5 years old. I just put it on my shelf and never wore it. So I thought, you know what? Today it's literally collecting dust. So I got to dust it off and wear it.
No, bro, it's clean. That is clean, dude. I like that a lot. I'm going to have to get me one of those because I've got a couple of old school hats. They look worn out. They kind of come that way, but I don't have any with that 50s logo. And like I said, man, anytime it's on this shirt here, it's on a couple other sweatshirts. I was able to find some hoodies. I love that logo, man. The Heisman pose in front of the state of Wisconsin. It don't get any better than that, man. So
I even got the stickers on it, man. I'm cool. I'm cool.
Yep. All right. I see you, big dog.
My mom says I'm cool.
Oh, there we go. All right. So check this out. United Base says, I think that might be a Navy SEAL David Goggins reference. Let's go. I know who David Goggins is. He said David Goggins, quote, ex-Navy SEAL. I love it, man. David Goggins.
No thing as an ex-Navy SEAL.
Right. Oh, yeah. If there was one in here, we'd get slapped for it. I had a Marine check me the other day. I just said, yes, sir. You know what I mean? Appreciate your service. But, yeah, David Goggins is, man, what a hell of a story that guy is.
Yeah.
I'm not going to spend time trying to explain it on this podcast, but just do some research on David Goggins, one of the toughest son of a guns on the face of the earth, man. That guy is just no excuses. If you're one of those people that say spare me the pull yourself up by the bootstraps talk, then don't go find David Goggins because he's going to give you all that you can handle for sure. So no excuses. Love that dude. All right, let's jump into this article, man. This was really cool, kind of exciting to see. So this was on the 33rd team. And it was by Dan Pizzuta. I hope I'm saying that name correctly, NFL analyst. And it says 7 potential breakout players for the 2024 NFL season. So obviously we're going to scroll down here and kind of show you some of the folks they're talking about. You got Khalil Shakir. I think I'm saying that right. Wide receiver out of the Buffalo Bills. All right. You've got Devin Witherspoon, defensive back from the Seattle Seahawks. We've got Anthony Richardson, quarterback from the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously the injury cut his season short last year. Then we've got Ernest Jones, linebacker for the LA Rams. We've got Nick Bonito, edge defender for the Denver Broncos. And then look at this. Number 7, we got Mr. Jaden Reed, wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, Jaden Reed. Let's read the article real quick, and I'll try not to bore you. You got to love that ad right there, right? Okay, there you go. So
let's Jaden read this article real quick.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you did there.
Oh,
so it says, when the Packers offense found its groove during the second half of the season, Jaden Reed was its best receiving option. The second-round pick was a big play threat and one of the best vertical options from the slot. His 18 targets and 361 yards from the slot on throws of 20 or more air yards were the most in the league. I didn't realize that. That's pretty wild. It says Reed started as the jet guy in Green Bay's offense. You guys hear us refer to it as flyer. And he grew in that role, making it a more dynamic position. By the end of the season, the Packers were taking traditional jet plays like the jet wheel teams are featuring heavily since Tyreek Hill and the Kansas City Chiefs used it to get more momentum for his speed. That's when you hear us talk about cheat motion. That's what we're talking about, right? It says for his speed and breaking them off into the middle of the field. From week 10 on, Reed was 19th among wide receivers in yards per route run at 2.43. Though two teammates, Bo Melton and Dontavian Wicks, were above during that span. However, 116 receivers had at least 100 routes in that span, and Reed was one of 12 to eclipse 2.0 yards per route run against man and zone coverages. Overall, he was 24th in yards per route run on the season. That's a legit number one receiver. Again, not saying he's the number one receiver. I'm saying those are numbers that stack up in the top 32, which suggests he is a number one caliber receiver. Reed could become the most versatile option in the Green Bay passing game, which could take another step forward with Jordan Love. If that's the case, Reed should blow past his 94 targets and 793 yards as a rookie. Guys, don't look now, but I think old Jaden Reed might be poised here for a 1,000-yard season. But just go around the horn there to trigger any thoughts in your mind, Tim, mentioning there you go, Respect Orange's 1,000 yards this season. What do you guys think? Let's just start there, Tim. You think Jaden Reed's capable of cracking 1,000 this year?
It reminds me of training camp last year, man. I had a feeling just watching him out there, his first camp as a rookie, and he looked like a veteran. I said it last year. I'll say it again. I think he's going to be a star. I think he does have that talent. So, yeah, 1,000-yard season, sure. Now, the only thing that may make that difficult is, we like to spread the ball around. So it's about, targets and getting those opportunities, which I'm sure he will. I hope we have several 1,000-yard receivers on this team this year. But, yeah, dude, Jaden Reed, Bird, he's the man. he's going to blow up this year for sure. And it'll be so sweet because so is Dontavian Wicks and Bo Melton, a lot of these other receivers we have. So I'm excited for sure.
Yeah. And, the beautiful thing about Reed, too, when we broke down the college tape before he even took a single snap for the Packers as soon as they drafted him, the thing that stood out to me was he played a ton of Z. So he was already comfortable playing the Z wide receiver position. And then you mix in motion, that now becomes kind of the flyer spot in Matt LaFleur's offense. He's just automatically comfortable pre-snap with that. And we've seen him on jet motion and reverses and all those things at Michigan State. So it was just just a match made in heaven, really. But Jacob, what do you think, man, about Reed here, dude?
And I mean, if you saw the way he played as a rookie, like Tim said, he carried himself everywhere from the play on the field to the interviews to just the mentality. He seems like he's a seasoned vet, and he's going into year 2. You talk about guys that take big steps in that year 2. That's what you want to see. I really do think Jaden Reed could take a massive hop, skip, jump in that second year. And like Tim said, we've got guys like Dontavian Wicks and Bo Melton who equally, I think, could take another big step. I wouldn't be surprised for sure if we had 2,000-yard receivers. I think that's pretty generous. I mean, who knows? We could have 3. I think that Jordan Love's going to throw for over 4,000 yards. So you break up a few running backs in there, maybe a tight end, but I think there may be 2 wide receivers that crack that 1,000 mark. And I think right off the top of my head, I think probably Watson and Reed. But, and remind me that when we get through this segment, I got one that I want to pose to you guys.
Yeah. Cool. Sounds good, man. Coach Lynn in the chat said, I've seen some articles talking about Wicks being a sleeper this season. We have 2 guys under the radar.
Yeah.
It's so true.
3.
Man.
I think 3.
Yeah. With
Bo,
the sky's the limit, dude. Bo, I'm telling you, man, Bo is like, if he continues the trajectory that he started last year and he gets more target, I don't know how he's going to get more targets seeing how deep the wide receiver room is, but if he does, look out, dude. M. Smith 13 says, said it the other day, we have such a good problem with so much talent in the wide receiver room. Absolutely. Respect.
We haven't even hit on Malik Heath and Grant DeBose, and there is massive depth in the wide receiver room for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And all young, all cheap, at least for the next 2 years. Respect Orange just says Reed and Wicks look like they were working hard together during the offseason. That's the other thing. Like, if you're gonna move Reed around from Z to flyer to in the slot as well, if you want to go that speed to 3 and he turns into that guy, or I feel like ideally Christian Watson should be that speed to 3, but and leave kind of Jaden Reed more in the flyer. I think Tim agrees with that too. We were talking offline there. Although if you've got teams that are really trying to target Christian Watson and want to, if they do shift to trying to bracket cover him, which you've seen a little bit, not as much as some would lead you to believe. If that's the case, that makes it really hard on defenses if he is the motion guy, if he is the flyer. So the fact that Wicks and Reed working together, that's really exciting to me. So
Tay Wicks looks like he put on 10 pounds of muscle in the
his shoulders are unbelievable. Yeah. Like he is just he looks like a superhero. So and the first thing I thought of was like, all right, who's he remind me of? He reminds me of a young Terrell Owens. And I know he's not quite that big, obviously, but just the way Terrell, when he first came in the league, he obviously he wasn't quite as big as when he ended. A lot more muscle on that frame toward the end of his career. But I think Dontavian Wicks can be one of those dominant guys that just kind of throws his weight around for sure. Let's see. United Bates says, I think Reed is definitely capable. Only drawback is we have a lot of depth and spread the love, no pun intended. Completely agree, Bates. Completely agree. I know that's what Tim hit on just a second ago, too. That's what he said. Never mind, Tim just said it. Robbie says he literally didn't come too far off last season, and he was barely cracking the ice. Very good point, Robbie. Appreciate you swinging through, man, over on X. Good to have you in here. And that's the thing. Like, nobody expected him to take the first year impact he did this year. I mean, if he stays healthy, it kind of feels like 1,000 slam dunk.
Do you guys remember that in regards to Dontavian Wicks, that his big knock, and as to why he fell, people said that he was kind of flashy or whatever, but his biggest knock was that he wanted to be a basketball player, and that he was like putting more of his eggs in that basket once he realized, hey, I probably ain't going to get drafted, or it'd be an uphill grind with ice skates on. He said, oh, I guess I'll fall back onto my wide receiver career. And if the dude now realizes, like, yo, I'm making money as a Green Bay Packer, I'm going to put all my effort. And I'm not going to say that he didn't, but you got to imagine that he probably now, I mean, this is almost a guy that, like somebody that switches positions, but he switched sports basically. You know what I mean? He really didn't even take it that seriously. Now it's to the point where like, this is your career. He knows that that's where he's going to get his money. And that to me is more intriguing than maybe any other storyline that we have here, is the fact that Dontavian Wicks looked that good as a rookie without maybe even really applying himself yet. Like that's insane.
Yeah, definitely. And I've got the numbers here where we ranked them the other day. I apologize for the pages flipping. I'm old school like that, but I know we ranked the receivers out, and let me just get to it here real quick. Yeah, so essentially what it came out to, when we took into consideration passer rate when targeted, drop percentage, yards per route run, broke/missed tackles that are forced, and the PFF grade, they graded out number 1, Bo Melton, number 2, Dontavian Wicks, number 3, Jaden Reed, 4, Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson tied, and then Malik Heath there with a 5.2. So the fact that Bo Melton was ahead of Dontavian Wicks and Jaden Reed, and they were just 0.2 of a point apart from, the average of all 5 of those spots, really exciting stuff, man. Like I said, let's just ease Bo Melton on in there. Let's get Bo Melton the kind of looks that we got Dontavian Wicks last year. Let's get him those looks this year, and let's amp Dontavian Wicks up a touch. And, I know some people are still worried about Christian Watson and staying healthy. If that's the case, these other guys, it's just next man up, man. That's the way it works, right? And you hate it for Christian Watson. But if there's ever going to be any extra incentive that Christian Watson, I'm not saying he needs it, but he's got to be looking over his shoulder like, I got to get this Hammy thing figured out because these boys are good. They're going to take my job, right? That competition is really important for sure. Mick Knight in the house says the opposition's number 1 cornerback covers which Packer? That's the beautiful thing about Matt LaFleur's offense.
Exactly. Good luck with that.
And that's the thing about Matt LaFleur's offense is you move those guys around so much. We just talked about how both Reed and Watson can play. Everybody can play flyer, but Reed and Watson can kind of play flyer, the majority of the other receivers. The one thing that I was talking to Tim about this too, the one position that seems like it's pretty set in stone, according to Matt LaFleur, is they love Romeo Doubs in that boundary X. Get him in that isolation spot. Let him run choice routes. Let him use those strong hands, minimal separation. And really what you do there, if you got a guy that can shake a corner, get open, and make a possession catch in a clutch situation, whether it's a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 8, whatever it may be, now the safety has got to determine, okay, the boundary safety, which you look at in a defense, and you can really tell what a defense is up to, is by reading the boundary safety and the Sam backer, or if you're in a nickel, the boundary safety and the Mike backer on the strong side of the formation. Gathering information from those two really determine how they're going to play a certain formation, a certain play style. So the fact that you've got Romeo Doubs over there, you put speed to 3 if you go to a trip set, and you've got Christian Watson or Jaden Reed in that number 3 on the opposite side, and we'll kind of talk about what that means here in a second. If you do that, you're forcing that boundary safety to cheat toward the center of the field. And then if you're going to go middle field close, which is just single high safety, this is what it opens up. We love running slot cross. We've talked about this over and over and over. If you go slot cross, that crosser of the slot cross concept is going to take that safety with him and open up that second window for the backside dig. And while all that's going on in a middle field close defense, you're one-on-one with your boundary X, Romeo Doubs. And some would say that Romeo Doubs is the best receiver on this team. I can't argue with that. I think the numbers, the statistics suggest that he's not going to be quite as good as Jaden Reed and Dontavian Wicks, but it's still pretty early in their career, and Romeo's done it for 1 extra year. So, I don't know. As far as that goes, though, there's very few teams that play strictly man coverage. Mick, well, nobody plays man coverage 100% of the time. If you're not playing man coverage, then corners won't follow the number 1. So it's only in man coverage calls that a team could put a number 1 corner on a specific receiver, if that makes sense. That is something that gets tossed around a lot around the league. That's just simply not true. We'll show you tendencies here in a minute. We got that stuff ready to roll as well. Eric Sutherland in the chat says, I'm still upset with Packer fans that they were mad about the Reed pick. Bums. I wasn't mad over the pick, but I'm going to be 100% honest. You guys remember, if you watched that draft coverage that year, I looked at my board and went, what did I miss with Reed? Why did they take Reed there? I was like, yeah, who? I was like, what happened there? And then you go back and start digging, and it's like, oh, that 2021 tape, holy cow, that dude was a dog. So just had a slight setback, quarterback issues in 2021 or 2022. And Goody went back to the 2021 tape and said, oh, they're sleeping on this kid. So,
yeah.
But yeah, there were people that were kind of scratching their head, no doubt. All right, so let's do this, man. Anything else you guys want to add to the Jaden Reed conversation, first of all?
I was just going to say, like, as we're talking about flyer position, I think Bo can play that too. I really do. I think we might even see some of that this year. What do you think, Clay? You think we'll see Bo Melton in that spot?
Yeah, I think you could, but I think it makes more sense what Coach Lynn is saying here. I like speed to 3 with Bo Melton also, because Bo is just about as fast as Christian Watson. That's his strength, which is wild because if I remember correctly, he didn't have a drop, did he, guys? Am I thinking right?
Nope.
Yeah, not a single drop by Bo Melton in 24 targets. So the fact that the strength of Bo Melton's game is speed, and he didn't have any drops, like pretty
It's
good.
Got to be the cheese curds, Clayton.
Cheese curds make my stomach hurt all the time, but I do eat them though.
I do eat them.
I do too, Bo. They don't hurt my stomach, and I eat them. Yeah. So I don't see Bo in that flyer row, but I'll tell you this: you get a quarter of the way through the season, and you haven't shown him in the flyer, and then you throw him in flyer. Watch defenses go, well, hell, they've got another one. This guy's doing it too, right? And that really can free things up throughout the defense. It's, again, it's all chess. It's, okay, they do this, we're going to do that. If we do this, they're going to do that. And then when you show a look that they haven't seen, that's when it throws a, flux into their whole game plan. Like we were talking about, Tim, when you put Christian Watson in that flyer spot, and let's say they are trying to bracket cover him, and what we mean by bracket cover is you got a guy up high covering him with over the top technique typically, and a guy underneath with underneath technique. Okay, so you're cheating underneath, cheating over top. It's not, in most cases, it is true double cover, but when you bracket cover someone, you're trying to play, you're tightening that window in which he can get open. Now you can also bracket cover inside to outside and outside to inside in the same facet. Like if a team is running a lot of slot cross, like we talked about, that passing concept is 2 in-breaking routes. So if you cheat it in a way where someone is bracket covering underneath on the inside of the first window, and the second one is undercutting the first window, then you can kind of bracket cover. It just makes things way more difficult, especially in a trips or a tray set where you could throw a little dagger in the opposite side of the field, which is basically the number 2 running a go with the number 1 on a deep dig. You throw that into the mix, they can't cover everyone. And that's the beautiful thing about not having a true number 1. And I just know the national media hates it, seeing Green Bay with all these weapons. You know what I mean? It's like, because they've pounded the table for so long about, well, they need to get a true number 1. They need a true number 1. They need to spend a first round pick on a number 1. And the fact that it was so successful last year, not having a true number 1 in their eyes, it's just beautiful, man. It's a beautiful thing. So
I think Jacob had something he wanted to do, right, Jacob?
Yeah, go ahead, Jacob. What'd you have, bro?
I was just going to ask what you guys thought. PFF released 2 podcasts back to back. They were just pretty simple. It's off-season banter and that kind of stuff, but I thought it was an interesting topic. It was the top 3 players from each team in the NFC and the AFC. So they did the AFC teams first, and then they did the NFC the next day. And as far as what the Green Bay Packers were selected as, they said Rashawn Gary, Jair Alexander, and Jordan Love. And the guy that was in charge of actually making the article for PFF was Trevor Sikkema, who is a contributor on the show. The other 2 guys, Sam Monson and forgive me, I can't remember the other guy's name. Big dude.
I know what you're talking about.
They said that it was unique because Trevor Sikkema said these are the 3 and we have no other alternates, whereas most teams had like 2 or 3 other alternates. Monson and the other guy were like, you're insane. Like, if anything, those top 3 could be debated. They talked about Zach Tom. They talked about Xavier McKinney. They talked about Josh Jacobs. They talked about Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, even possibly. Like they said, it's almost like he pushed, kind of pushed the narrative away because there was too many options. And he said, well, there's no other option. Like, and to me, it's just, I thought that was a really interesting article because even the guys at PFF, which I don't always agree with, but I do enjoy the way they break stuff down. Generally, what I've learned about people that cover the Packers that aren't specifically covering the Packers, it's like they read the New York Times or like the MSNBC article and they're just like, well, that's the narrative. It's like, you didn't do any deep dive into this at all, because if you did, you'd find out that that's, I mean, you could argue one of the Musgrave, you know what I mean? Like just random stuff like that where you don't think of. Kenny Clark was, they said you could throw that in. You could even throw Quay possibly having to be the standalone middle linebacker. So it was interesting. What would you guys think about those three though? Rashawn Gary, Jordan Love, and Ja.
Yeah, that's the easy boilerplate, you know, low research, low information, not doing a deep dive analysis. Yeah, that would be what I would think they would say, right? But to your point, Jacob, I mean, we could sit here and rattle off 3 players at a time and not even get halfway through this roster. So
they said Zach Tom and Elton Jenkins deserve a nod there. I said, yeah, that's true.
Absolutely.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yep. And you know, Rasheed Walker's another one. I know his run blocking not that great, but the fact that he didn't give up a sack all year, right? Am I thinking right? Is that a statistic I heard, or is it?
I think you're right.
Yeah. Regardless, I mean, he proved to be pretty effective as a pass blocker, and as a former 7th round pick. Like that's one that you can't write off. My whole knock on Rasheed Walker is I just didn't like the idea of, well, we got our left tackle, let's move on. Now you've got to constantly be trying to improve that position, you know. But he's one I think could get mentioned, especially in the passing game. But yeah, that sounds like a normal national sports media narrative. Okay, let's see here. Who's the 3 best players? Yep, that's all they got. All right, let's move on, rather than actually digging in. And what I love about what we do, not to toot our own horn, but I mean, we're a bunch of idiots. I'll be the first to tell you. Like, we're just football fans that love the game. But we try to look at the tape. We try to look at the PFF grade. We try to look at the SIS data. We try to look at key statistics that we deem important. We try to understand, okay, what are the game plans? What are the passing concepts? What is the run scheme? What's the strength of the defense that you're facing? Okay, did they really have something to go there? Is that a bad play call? We try to take everything into consideration. I think that's the way to do it. And then you kind of, okay, you've got more information, better is the way I see it. And I know some people, I crack up because people go, oh, you're not looking at that side, are you? Okay, what's your favorite side? Well, I don't really know. Yeah, then shut up. Like, you're just complaining. You've got people that are just tape guys that if you don't watch the tape, then you're missing everything. You've got some guys that are all analytics. I don't need to watch the tape. I've got analytics. They're wrong too. Like, everything has its place, and the more information, the better.
Rasheed Walker, they're saying 6 sacks, according to PFF. Yep.
They allowed 6 sacks. Holy cow, I thought he was better than that pass block.
6 sacks, 36 pressures out of 50 eligible.
Yeah. PFF has a weird way of recording sacks.
Yeah, this is PFF's ranking.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So,
like, even if it's like you could get a half sack and then count that as a full or something like that, or even if they say that you're liable, even though you didn't, whatever. So yeah, maybe.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, I don't think that was the actual statistics, but I know that in some cases they would, like, say Jordan Love extended the play, Rasheed Walker could have gotten beat, and they would count it as a sack, deemed a sack-worthy play, if you will. So
okay, yeah.
But
we'll try to find better numbers. My bad.
No, it's all good, dude. That, like, again, that information's important. It all is. You know, take it all in and throw it into the pot and see what you cook up. Speaking of cooking up, I like what Eric said here. Cheese curds destroyed my abs. I always refer to my ab. I got one. It's under there somewhere. I don't know where it's.
I don't know. I'm not a doctor.
I don't have a 6-pack. I got a keg. And
there you go. That's what I'm talking.
Just right.
So there. Turtle's in the chat. Good to see you, bud. He said, I saw someone breaking down Wicks's route tree, and he has a 90% win rate on the out routes.
Yep,
I believe it, man. And Jordan Love's got the arm strength to hammer those out routes. We've seen it in the Kansas City tape we broke down earlier today on the highlight reel. That deep out comeback to Christian Watson, Jordan Love let that thing rip, and it was right on the money. That might be a way to utilize Dontavian Wicks a little bit more, is on some of those outbreaking routes, some of those corner routes. You know, if you want to get into like the wolf concepts and things like that. Like wolf concept was one that emerged for about a 3-game stint for the Packers that they used like 3 games in a row. And it's basically the number 1 runs an out route and the number 2 runs a corner over top of it. So you're trying to create a high-low read on the outside of the defense. And if you catch them in a single high look, you can really hammer that home in that regard if they're not playing bump. In some cases, you can do it against bump as well. But let's see here. Coach Lynn says the great thing about our offense, we could go speed to 3 with Musgrave. There we go. And open up all sorts of room in the middle of the field or have a mismatch nightmare. You've seen that a little bit last year. And on top of that, Coach Lynn, you also seen, even with Tucker Kraft on the field, they would put the Y out on the outside. They would put the Y in the number 1. And that was really interesting because it's like, holy cow, what you're trying to do there is catch them. I think personally, you're trying to catch them in man coverage and walk that linebacker out. And if you do that and you stay in 11 personnel, guess what? You're getting 1 less linebacker in the box if they are in man coverage. Now, if they decide to put a safety on them, that automatically keys to the quarterback must be single high coverage because it can't be too high shell if one safety's in man coverage on the line and he's on the outside of the field. So just little things like that allow the quarterback to be able to gather more information, right? But yeah, good stuff there, man. All right, let's do this. Let's talk about defense for a second. You guys cool with that? Shift gears to defense. I know Tim is. Tim,
I'm not going to say no to that.
Tim said he just actually unmuted us. He's ready to talk now. So let's look at the tendencies from last year. Again, the 3 defenses that we really compare. Oh, the dogs hear something, boys. It's about to get loud. The shepherd's ears are perked. They're like, what is going on?
They're like, you talking about defense? Let's go.
Yeah,
is Emilio in the backyard? Is that what's going on?
Oh, it could be. You never know. So when we look at the tendency for the Packers, I want to key in on 4 different things here, okay? Well, maybe 5 different things. Look at the base defense, okay? And look at the percentage in which we played base defense. Under Joe Barry last year, 26% of the time we were in 34 jam, or a version of a 34 base. You guys know the large majority of the time our 34 base was 34 jam, which is essentially 3 interior linemen lined up inside the tackles, and then you've got 2 edge defenders on the outside outside shoulder of the tackle. So you've got a 5-man front, essentially. We ran that 26% of the time in a 34 base. We ran nickel 68% of the time and dime 5% of the time. Now, Jeff Hafley's defense is going to look like one of these 3 defenses, San Francisco, New York Jets, or Houston, okay, or a hybrid of all 3. So let's compare and contrast base nickel and dime plus, which could be a quarter coverage as well. Not quarters, but what we refer to as quarter, which is 7 DBs, okay? So base, we ran 26% of the time. In San Francisco, they only ran it 18% of the time. In New York, they only ran it 15% of the time. And in Houston, they ran it 21% of the time. So Houston's defense, the closest to what we ran in Green Bay, and it's still 5% less in base. Yep. Now, you got to take into consideration, it depends on the teams you're playing, but the fact that you've got 1 NFC team and 2 AFC teams on defense, pretty good sample size. I think it's a true reading of just to show you how little base other teams are. Now, why did we run so much base? I personally think it's because they wanted to improve the run defense. Believe it or not, the run defense did improve last year for the Green Bay Packers. It slightly improved. But the passing defense took a slight step back according to SIS data. All right. So let's go to nickel. Green Bay ran nickel 68% of the time last year. That was our nickel 2-4-5 for the most part. We didn't run a whole lot of big nickel. We ran nickel 2-4-5 with Keyshawn playing the slot. 68% of the time we were in nickel. San Francisco, 80%.
Wow.
New York Jets, 81%. Houston, 76%. So what you're going to see is us in more of a nickel set, even on those downs that you would normally match personnel, whether it's 21 or 12, you'll probably still see us play nickel, and that's where I think you're going to see more big nickel. And what we mean by big nickel, we'll outline here in just a second. I've got a play art diagram we can pull up and show you guys this. Now, dime plus, basically dime. Here's it. Again, I don't want to talk down to people when I say this, there's always someone who reaches out to me and goes, what do you mean by this? What do you mean by that? I know a large majority of our listeners, our viewers, know what base, dime, and nickel and dime mean, okay? But I want to just take a second and explain what that means to someone who may not. The thing that pisses me off the most about podcast, I just felt my ears get hot just thinking about this. What really makes me mad about podcasters is when it's, well, they need to catch up to me. No, it's our responsibility to slow down for a second and try to teach a little bit. Not that we've got all the answers, but it's just, if you understand something that another human being doesn't, and you're not willing to take a split second to just explain it, that ticks me off. I feel like it's our responsibility to do that. But when you're talking about base, again, it can be 34 or 43. In this case with the Packers, it's now going to be 43. The reason they call it nickel is you're taking one of the linebackers off the field and you're adding an extra DB. In our case, it was Keyshawn Nixon in the slot. The reason it's called nickel is you're going from now 4 DBs, 2 corners and 2 safeties, to 5 DBs, which will be 3 corners and 2 safeties for the most part, okay? So when you do that, 5 equals a nickel. That's just a quick way of just saying nickel instead of 5 DBs, all right? When you go to dime, you just add another one on. So it would be 6 DBs. When you go to quarter, that would be 7 DBs, okay? And believe it or not, the Saints, when Greg Williams was in New Orleans roughly a decade ago, he ran a lot of quarter. He would run a lot of dollar look too. So
I was going to ask about dollar. That's kind of similar.
Yeah, very, very similar. Sometimes you got a hybrid safety that'll play a linebacker spot, but still it's an extra DB technically. It's kind of the dime approach to big nickel. You're adding a safety in there.
Do you see Hafley utilizing that?
I think
considering what we have in our secondary,
I think the reason that it got utilized more when it comes to dollar and quarter, roughly a decade ago, is because the spread offense was just taking over the NFL. Right. Now what you're seeing are more teams settle into 11 personnel. So I think what we'll see the majority of is nickel and big nickel. That's what I think we're going to see. And again, why do I think that? San Francisco last year, 80% nickel. New York Jets, 81% nickel. And Houston Texans, 76% nickel. The reason I'm including these 3 teams, guys, Hafley is always referring to his NFL friends, his quote NFL friends. He's talking about a guy who he came up through the ranks with in the old Seattle defense, and obviously he coached at San Francisco together. That's Robert Saleh. Okay. Now the reason we mentioned San Francisco is because Kyle Shanahan employed all those guys, and he likes that same defensive philosophy. Now he just fired his defensive coordinator because they had kind of a miscommunication in the Super Bowl where they didn't see eye to eye on how the defense needs to be ran. I think he's wanting to see the defense ran more like Saleh's defense. And then, of course, in Houston, when Saleh went to New York, right, DeMeco Ryans took over as defensive coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers. Now DeMeco Ryans is the head coach in Houston. Therefore, he's implementing that same defense down there, just putting his own little spin on it. And what you're seeing there is a little less nickel than New York and San Francisco run, but still a lot closer to them than Green Bay's 68% nickel. That makes sense. So now, if we were to pull this up here, I've got a Playbook app that I use where you can draw up plays and things. You guys can see this, right? Yeah. I'm gonna go full screen here and just explain to you what we mean by this. When we go base defense here, okay, this is, let's say we're playing a 12 against a 12 personnel. Okay, this is what a normal base 4-3 defense will look like right here. Notice you've got the U right here, right? So you've got your Y that's on the line of scrimmage, your tight end. You got your second tight end, which I always refer to as the U. So this is an ace, a 12 ace set, okay? So this is what we're talking about with base. You've got 4 DBs, right? Now, you're going to hear 4-3 under and 4-3 over. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time explaining that on here, but simply what it means, the strong side of the formation, when you're playing under, your defensive line is going to slightly shift towards the weak side of the formation. So let's say this U is over here and you're strong right. And under would be your defensive line shifted in this direction. Now, typically when you do that, you'll bring the Sam up here, whether he's on the line or just a little bit closer, almost playing like that spur look. What you're trying to do is present a 5-man front. What does that look like right there? 34 jam. You see how you can get kind of lost in that where people are like, oh, this is so different. Not necessarily. It depends on what they're running and how you want to attack their scheme. But an under is when they're shifted under the strong side of the formation, away from the strong side of the formation. In an overlook, it all depends on the defensive tackle. They will be shaded toward the strong side of the formation. That's more of an over front. Does that make sense? So
Yep.
that's what under and over mean. Again, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time there. And now I've got all my lines screwed up because I didn't even have this in the notes to try to hit on, which is hilarious. But if we go back to that balanced look again, that is your basic 4-3. When we talk Mike, that's your middle linebacker. That's your gap destroyer, right? He's the guy that's got to be able to attack in these interior gaps, and he's also got to be able to play sideline to sideline if the play flows away from the middle of the field. Think Fred Warner. That's the ultimate Mike linebacker in the NFL. Your Sam is your strong side linebacker, okay? So if the U was over here, obviously that would be your Sam, okay? If the Y and the U were left, then you would switch this. The Will would be your weak side backer. In this case, I'm just going to leave it kind of traditional. Will weak side, Mike middle linebacker, Sam strong side backer, okay? Now you'll hear us talk about sometimes a safety playing spur. And what we mean by that, this is more of a college term, but if you've got a spur backer here, you'll bring this backer up into the box and kind of play here almost like a fourth linebacker, whether he's a little bit deeper or right here. That's spur. Guys, this is the old school Oklahoma 4-4 defense is what this is. The only difference is you've got a hybrid safety or a hybrid linebacker that's disguised as a safety, essentially. Okay?
Javon Bullard.
There you go. When we say spur, that's what we're talking about, okay? And I'm going to try to go back to the text I sent you guys because these things were coming to me the other day, and I'm like, we need to talk about that on the show because people were asking. So big nickel, let's talk about big nickel real quick, okay? So what we're going to do is back up, and we're going to go to – go ahead, Jacob. Sorry, bud.
I was going to ask a question because randomly when I was in high school, we ran a 4-4. We called it Trojan as our base. I was told by our coaches, like, this is something you just can't get away with in the NFL. Is there a reason is that the reason, I guess, that the strong safety is that quote unquote hybrid linebacker? Because if you had 4-on-4, you just really wouldn't be able to match up. Like,
yeah,
as far as
what it means and what they mean by that is if this was a traditional 4-4 and this was just a linebacker and not a safety, imagine a linebacker trying to cover Luke Musgrave.
Yeah.
Right. That's where the mismatch happens. So, yeah, I'm sure that's what they meant by that. That's why the 4-4, as the game evolves, and it's a beautiful thing about football, it changes every year, man. There's always something that changes, always. In the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, 4-4 and even 5-2, there were 5-2 defenses, right? Well, guess what a 5-2 is? It's a 4-3 over. I mean, think about it, or a 4-3 under. If you shifted this left end in and put that Sam up there, right, you've essentially got a 5-2. You've got 5 defensive linemen at the point of attack, although this one is a linebacker, and that's that old school Sam. The Sam isn't as common as it used to be in the 90s. You can see how ignorant people are when they try to talk down to people and they're like, well, he's a true Sam. And it's like, bro, you have no clue. The Sam is so out of date. Yes, they still exist, but to pretend like you're building a roster around a Sam now, you're about 8 years behind, bub, probably 10 years behind. So, again, that would be kind of that 5-2 approach where if you did bring the Sam up here, you see how it's 5 defensive linemen and 2 linebackers, right? So, and again, that's why it's important to have people like Quay Walker where they can do multiple things. You could walk Quay up on the line. He can be an edge defender theoretically. Now, whether he does it well or not, we can debate that, but that's kind of the goal, the overall goal. But yeah, Jacob, did that answer your question, man?
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's go to nickel real quick. And let's talk about, again, I pulled my notes up here. People are asking about big nickel. Let's talk about what big nickel is. So we're going to go into our nickel set here. Okay, now you notice we just have a Will and a Mike, and we have a nickel back. Okay, not the band that Jacob loves so much, but the nickel back.
The man is a wise man.
Jacob's favorite band.
I know people like to hate on them. People love to hate on them, but I love how they pretend like they were not good. Like people,
they're to this day one of the highest grossing albums of all time. They were at like #1 for months.
Yeah,
are they touring again too?
I hope so.
I think they're on tour right now.
Are they still alive?
Yeah, I think they're still
just joking.
Yeah,
they're doing shows.
What is it? Creed, Three Doors Down, and Nickelback. That'd be a dope show.
Yeah,
dude, Three Doors Down was the fire. When they dropped that initial album, everybody was like, who the hell is this garage band? They were awesome. Anyway, this is a Packers podcast. I apologize.
3 Doors Down, Nickelback, and Creed. We're in business.
Nickel Creed smack.
So nickel defense. Notice there's no Sam now, right? You've got a Will and a mock. So your Sam is replaced by a nickel back. Really, your mock replaces your Sam. The Sam comes off the field. The mock is always going to play towards the strong side of the formation in a nickel 4-2-5, which is essentially what we're going to run is a nickel 4-2-5 is what everyone's guessing. Now, he may come out and show a 3-3-5 cub and blow everybody's mind, where there's 3 down linemen, kind of like a base 34 defense, and then you have 3 stack backers too. That could be a 3-3-5 nickel. That's what I've always heard as cub. So, essentially, you've got a will and a mock. The mock will be on the strong side of the formation. Here's your Y. So the mock is going to be on the right side of the formation here from the offensive perspective. The will is the weak side backer, so he'll be away from the strong side of the formation. Now you've got your nickel back in here, right? That's Keyshawn Nixon. That's the position he played. So when we say big nickel, what simply happens is the cornerback will come off the field, and this nickel will be replaced with a safety, okay? So if I were to change this, I probably shouldn't do this right now, but let's just throw another safety in there, okay? Let's say there's another safety there. See, that's what you call big nickel, all right? And the reason you're doing that is because you're getting a better tackler. One of the ways that offenses, the main way that offenses like to attack defenses in the modern-day NFL is they love showing 11 personnel. As we just showed you, it's the reason so many defenses play so much nickel. They'll come out in 11 personnel on first down, and they'll run the ball. If this is a smaller corner, slot corner here, and he can't tackle, guess what they do? They're going to run a little counter action, pull the guard, and run this T right at that nickel. But when you got a good tackling safety over there to play nickel, that changes everything. So when we say big nickel, this is what we're talking about. So you've essentially still got 5 DBs, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But instead of there being 3 corners and 2 safeties, there are 2 corners and 3 safeties.
So the premise of big nickel would be to protect yourself in the run game, right? You know, you're trying to shore up against the run.
Bingo. That it may be a quarterback that likes to run a lot of zone read, or more of a scrambling quarterback. Because I mean, who would you rather have trying to tackle a big scrambling quarterback like Anthony Richardson? Would you rather have Keyshawn out there, or would you rather have like a Catano Ladapo or a Evan Williams? Right. So that's essentially. But again, they like to run at that nickel position. So that's
a way you could contain a scrambling quarterback without having to spy, right? If you're in this. Okay.
Yep, exactly.
Is there a player comp that you could list that does that in the NFL right now that we could kind of picture, that type of player?
As far as I'm so embedded into the way the Packers have played in the past, it would be hard for me to name one off as a hybrid like that. Because the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about hybrid safeties, and it's not necessarily when you say big nickel, he didn't really play the nickel position to cover the slot. What was his name? He played for the Jets. He played for the Seahawks. His career went absolutely to crap.
Jamal Adams.
Yes. That's more of like a box safety, and they would really put him in the box. Yeah. He would play more of a linebacker role. Yeah. But that's why I feel like when you're going big nickel, the person who's best suited for this is Javon Bullard. I know, when you talk about playing spur, I think Javon Bullard could do that too, but I think his value is in that true playing that big nickel and covering the slot, because we've seen him do it. We've seen him do it at Georgia. So I would like to see him play that. That creates a huge position battle for if he does beat out Keyshawn Nixon for the slot. What's essentially going to happen, the base defense we just showed you, the strong safety will be Javon Bullard. When we shift to this nickel and we do go to big nickel, and here's the thing, this is going to be a game-by-game basis. It depends on how teams like to attack us. There may be offenses that we play where it's okay, the quarterback isn't a threat to scramble. They don't like to run at the nickel a lot. Let's put Keyshawn out there and keep Javon Bullard here. And you might like your matchup better there. But if Evan Williams and or Catano Ladapo come out and they turn heads in camp, you're going to see them fight for spots on the field as well. Here's Coach Lynn says Tranquil for the Chiefs is that type of player. So there you go, guys. There's you want to dive into some big nickel, go to YouTube tonight, type in Tranquil Chiefs, and you could probably find some highlights and see how they utilize him in the big nickel. And that's another one too. They play a ton of nickel and dime in Kansas City, and they love to blitz. United Bates says, I feel like the Giants, Eagles, Chiefs have used this. I'll tell you someone who played a little big nickel, and we seen it on the tape when Xavier McKinney did. But I don't want Xavier McKinney in the big nickel. I want him patrolling center field because that's kind of what you're paying him to do, But again, we've said this over and over and over. I almost want to remove the S and the F on these safeties because they've got to be able to play both aspects of the game. You know, Greg Cosell and Doug Ferrara were talking about that on the X's and O's podcast the other day. You've got to be able to play both. Guess who they mentioned in playing both? Javon Bullard and Xavier McKinney.
Nice.
It got me really excited. They were like, guess what Green Bay's doing? They're starting to change. I was like, let's go, dude. So
one other thing today, I usually I catch up on my podcast on the weekend, right? If you fall behind, and I listen to the PFF Fantasy podcast, and they had the defensive player. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but some fantasy football leagues will actually have you pick either one or two defensive players. It's pretty rare, but it is fun. That's what we did with the league that me and Carly were in last year.
Mm-hmm.
They had basically they list that safeties are more valuable than cornerbacks. So when they list a DB, if you have like top 20, maybe 18 of them are safeties just because they have more tackles, they have more opportunities for big plays, blah, blah, blah. They had Xavier McKinney rated as the 12th safety, which to me just was very disrespectful, I thought. To me, I think that he deserves to be. I think they had Antoine Winfield Jr. as number one.
I would think McKinney's top 10 at least.
At least top 10, right? I mean, that to me it blew me away. They listed a couple guys like Budda Baker, and I mean, don't get me wrong, he's been great, but didn't play great last year. So I feel like we need to get some respect on that name.
Yeah, dude, hey, my response is always going to be the same when it comes to stuff like that. Let them doubt, man. Let them doubt. You know, let people overlook it. I love that, man. That's what I loved about last season. And by the end of the year, I said, well, that was fun, but it's over now. We're no longer the underdogs. People were going to look at the Packers going, I'll be damned. They got them another quarterback, and they're going to be competing for championships again. That was fun last year. You guys heard me say it all offseason. I was just like, man, this year we're playing with the house's money. I said this over and over. Don't let them forget that everyone was picking us to finish dead last in the North.
That's right, Colin Cowturd.
And then halfway through the season, he's like, I'm telling you, this Green Bay Packers team, they're doing what we thought they're going to play.
Legit.
Shut up, you idiot. What are you doing? So anyway, big nickel. That's what big nickel means. Did I explain that well enough? You think everybody kind of understands what we mean by big nickel now?
Yes.
All right, cool. So another thing that's always asked is robber and spur. What's the difference between robber and spur? So let's switch this back to nickel. If I can do this real quick. I am very, very, I don't know what the word is. I'm very.
You just got this new toy, right? So you're still
technologically illiterate.
Yeah. I'm one of these guys that like, I count my steps. What's the term for that? Like you're very, God, it's not ADD. What is it? There's something there.
Meticulous?
Compulsive.
What is it? Somebody say pothead?
I said obsessive compulsive.
Yes. Compulsive disorder. Yes. I'm one of those people. Like it's got to be done. It's got to, OCD. There you go. It's got to be done in order. It's got to be done exactly the way I need it done, or it's going to drive me crazy and we're going to start over. So that's why I had to change that back to nickels, what I was getting at. So when we talk about playing spur and playing robber, okay, when you're playing robber, essentially what's going to happen here is, see how you're showing a too high look here? You're showing these two safeties up top. You're showing, a free safety up top. You're showing what we call shell, too high look, two on the shelf. With a robber look, what's essentially going to happen is one safety is going to come down and rob. Okay, so he is going to move down into the box post snap. The ball snapped. He's going to come down. This safety is going to play single high, deep. You got me? So this right here is what you call robber. Lining up in a too high look and a safety playing down, rotating down into the box. So when you hear cover one robber, it means it's cover one man, which is essentially right here. Okay. You've got a safety playing deep third. That's your cover one. Everyone else is man across the board. And you've got a robber that's coming into the box. And typically the way that works is you've got your deep safety and this robber will come down and play deep middle. And everyone else is man covered, right?
So you're showing middle field open pre-snap, but your middle field closed post-snap.
Bingo. And if we were to go back to what we started with here, and this is a big misconception, look at these bottom two columns down here at the bottom. See how it says MOFC, MOFO? That's middle of field closed, middle of field open. All year long, everyone was screaming, we got to get out of this quarters coverage. And we weren't playing quarters coverage. We played middle field closed, which is single high or cover 3. We played it 5th most in the league, guys. Look at that middle column percentage rank. That I heard people saying that last year. I'm like, I get it. People don't like Joe Barry, but you don't know what the hell you're even looking at. You're looking at pre-snap and thinking that's the end result, and that's not how it works. So we played middle field closed 52% of the time. That was 5th most in the league. We played middle field open 36% of the time. That was 26th most in the league. Now, notice when we played middle field close, the EPA ranked the players played better. That would suggest we're more suited for a cover 3/cover 1 defense. Now, back up. Robert Saleh, when he was coaching in San Francisco in the offseason, I think they mentioned this on the Play Callers podcast. They asked him, they said, man, what you're doing with quarters is amazing. And he laughed at them and said, we're not playing quarters. We're playing cover 3. You know why they thought they were playing quarters? Because they were disguising it with a too high shell. Yep. But they were actually playing cover 3 buzz, which is a staple in the Pete Carroll defense that originated with the Legion of Boom in Seattle.
Like Bates said in the chat, he said a lot of fans complaining about this last year, but they were only looking at pre-snap. It's like you're not even realizing what's happening after the ball is snapped.
Bingo. So when you play a cover 1 man, right, and you've got a robber, those are your 2 zone defenses. Okay. Now keep in mind that you got to be able to really cover ground out here deep. And then underneath, it's more of a, I wouldn't say a spy, but you're kind of taking the middle away, and everyone else is in man coverage. Okay. Now that's not the only defense you can play in that look. You can play a cover 3 zone too. And what we mean by that is, let's erase all this out. When we rotate down there, that's what they call spinner. Okay. And with spinner, let's say this is a cover 3 defense. Essentially what's going to happen is same exact look. This guy's covering deep. He's going to be covering deep. And there's like anywhere from 15 to 20 different cover 3 looks that a defense can show at the college level. Imagine the pros. But a normal cover 3, what will happen sometimes is this guy will spin down into the box, right? And he'll cover a zone. This will be a zone. This will be curl to flat, right? And this guy will be curl to flat, meaning if someone attacks the flat out of the backfield, he'll cover the flat. So essentially what your zones end up being is, this is why it's called cover 3. You've got 3 deep zones, right? And then you've got the curl to flat. And then you've got the curl, which is going to kind of bend over here. And then what we refer to your spinner is going to be covering this middle zone. And then this guy is curl to flat. That's a cover 3. And in some cases, they call it buzz. And there's some difference between buzz, cloud. We won't get into all that. All that simply means is the corner may stay in and cover the flat. And that strong safety cover deep. And the free safety. So the strong safety will roll over. Let's do this. We're going to start over anyway. This is what I'm talking about with OCD. If I don't cover it now, I'm going to be mad at myself. Let's take it back here. So with a cover 3 where you're wanting to play maybe a little cloud or a little flat, what will happen is this corner will actually play hook to flat, okay? This safety will roll over and cover deep third, right? Curl to flat, and then just curl or, hook/curl here in the middle. That makes sense? Yep. So that's the top of
this is why it's so important that you don't go rogue on defense. You've got to play your assignment.
Bingo. And it's why you heard me getting pissed off all year long with Joe Barry getting raked over the coals when they would be in man coverage. They would motion, and you'd see Jair Alexander just point across like, you guys take him. And it's like, bro, they've got their own man to cover. Yep. You can't just drop him there and do what you want to do. You can't do it. So I'm glad all that's behind us. I know this, if Ja doesn't step up this year and make this work, it's on him now, right? And I hope he does. I'm not rooting against him. You kidding me? We're paying him all that money. And there is no one that's more enjoyable to watch than Jair Alexander when he's playing good football. Man, that dude is the definition of entertainment.
I think he's excited to be in this system. I really do. Just looking at some of the interviews and just seeing the vibe right now, like he's jacked up to play in this Hafley system for sure.
Yeah. So that's what we're talking about. And again, the question that had been posed a couple of times when people would say, what is robber and what is spur? That's what robber means. Cover 1 robber is when it could be this safety. He could rob and this guy play. And that's what I'm saying. Like I want to remove the F and the S and just put S and S, just safety, because they both need to be able to do either or, right? So cover one robber is when the safety rotates down out of a too high look and he's playing down there in the middle zone, typically in a man coverage defense, okay? Again, the cover one robber is attached to man coverage, and you've got a zone responsibility and a predominantly man coverage call. And then, of course, spinner is when you've got a mid-zone coverage out of like a cover 3 look. Typically, you can do it out of cover 2 as well, but it's a lot rarer, I think you should say. So, all right. So now let's talk about what spur is. Spur is pre-snap when a safety comes down here and plays in the box. So let me actually take that off. Let's uncheck this. When this safety comes down and plays in the box, what you'll notice is the Michael kick over. Now the safety's in the box. That's a college term that's called spur. Typically, when that happens pre-snap, the safety will just go ahead and cheat over. When Jeff Hafley said we're going to play fast, people think that means we're going to blitz. We're going to get all exotic with all these crazy blitzes. You go look at the numbers of him at Boston College. He wasn't an exotic blitzer. There was times that he would even have the defensive tackle drop back and play spy, right? So what he's
probably less stunts and twists, you think?
What I think he means is there's going to be less of this sugaring, this shell look. We're going to get where we want to be. There's going to be less robbing. It's going to be pre-snap. You're already in place so they can play fast off the snap. I think that's what he's referring to. But again, the league changes so much that, who knows what he'll do. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised if they come out in a nickel 3-3-5 cub or something. The dude is great at kind of staying ahead of the curve. At least he was in San Francisco, because I know that because you've got future Hall of Fame players like Richard Sherman that was like, this dude, he puts you in a position to win. He knows what the hell he's talking about. When you earn the respect of Hall of Fame caliber players, in the meeting room, he's one step ahead of everyone. He's one step ahead of the smartest player in the room. So that's something you definitely didn't have with Joe Barry. And you guys know I don't slander Joe Barry much, but I think Jeff Hafley's knowledge of the game is on a much higher level, and I think he's a better communicator. The issue I had with the slander on Joe Barry last year was like, these guys are not playing the call that's called. They're standing in space and just going rogue, and which that's a sign that you lost the locker room and it's time to make a move. That's why about week 10, week 11, I went, yeah, guys, we got to make a move. It's I've held on as long as I can, but they're not responding to this dude. So again, that's what we mean by playing spur. Okay. That's what that simply means there. Any questions on that, fellas? Any comments, anything that triggered to you?
No. One thing I would ask is, again, listening to a kind of a flyby podcast, I think it was an ESPN fantasy podcast, Mina Kimes said just in passing, she's like, well, Jeff Hafley's coming in as the new defensive coordinator for the Green Bay Packers. He runs a predominantly single high safety coverage. Is that accurate to say that, like, just as a blanket statement, or is it more complex? I feel like you talked about just now with all the different ways that they move guys in and out of pre and post snap situations. Like, is it fair to call Jeff Hafley a single high safety scheme?
I think middle field close, he's talked about, he likes to play middle field closed. So I guess maybe, right? I don't know, Clay, what do you think?
On the surface, I would say, yeah, but this is why I would love to be in a conversation with people like that. He plays single high. Okay, where? When did you see that? And watch them trip over themselves. Because did he do it at BC? All right. Did he do it in San Francisco? Did he do it at Ohio State? Where did he do it? Did he do it way back in the day with Cleveland when he wasn't even the DC? What are you talking about? Where are you seeing single high? Right. I think what they're probably referring to is, not what they're referring to. The most accurate way to determine that is to go to the three defenses that we think they're going to be trying to mimic. Let's see what they did. Let's start with the New York Jets, which I think this is probably the best guess. And I'm emphasizing guess because nobody knows. Middle field close, they ran at 20th most in the league. They ran middle field open 16th most in the league. Green Bay ran more middle field close than New York did. So maybe we see a touch more middle field open end result. So with that being mentioned, maybe what they're seeing is that pre-snap middle field close and going to more shell coverage over top. See, you never would have expected that, would you? That Green Bay played more single high coverage than the New York Jets last year. And that's the big misconception, right? San Francisco, let's see what they did. Now, they played 11th most middle field open and 27th most middle field close. Same exact trend as New York, right? Houston. Let's see what Houston did here. If I can get that banner down quick. There we go. You see, middle field open, 5th most. Middle field close, 29th. You know why, guys? Because when you play middle field open, i.e. shell coverage, too high look, like we're seeing, let me drop this down, like we're seeing right here with this look, you are deterring the quarterback from actually trying to throw down the field. Because one of the things they love to do with explosives is they like to take the number 2, whether it's this slot receiver or let's say you flex the Y out like a Luke Musgrave, right? Let's say you put him out here, and now you've got to decide, do we walk the mock out or do we walk the safety out? Typically what will happen is you'll kind of cheat the mock out there. When you're showing this too high shell look, the number one way they like to approach with explosives are the number 2s getting vertical, okay? When you got these safeties here, guess what's covered? That number 2 vertical is covered. So everyone is like a half a step behind on what's actually happening on the field because they don't know how to adjust to, what's exactly going on pre-snap, what's exactly going on post-snap. I'm not talking about the players and the coaches. I'm talking about the media. So this whole time, everyone's thinking Joe Barry's just running shell coverage. We're playing quarters. Drunken podcasters live on stream going, I'm so sick of this prevent defense. You're an idiot. You're a moron, and you love talking down to quote-unquote casual fans, like you say, and you don't even know what the hell you're looking at.
So I got a question. Is that why we see a lot of, like, when you flex that Y out, that's why a lot of times you'll see that after they line up? You'll kind of see the quarterback scan that defense, and then they'll flex a guy out.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Everything it's all about just gaining that little bit of an advantage that you can gain pre-snap, whether it's sugaring or just putting your guys in an advantageous situation, like LaFleur likes to do with the flyer in motion, right? All those things is you're just trying to get a half a step of leverage, and you try to disguise it until the last second. But again, when the media says, Jacob, to answer your question, or whoever it was, I can't remember if it was Tim or Jacob, when the media says he's going to be a single high look, a middle field closed top defensive coordinator, what they're seeing is pre-snap. They're seeing this. And it might not even be complete spur. It might just be down here, and this safety's cheating. So it's okay. They're middle field close. But when you look at San Francisco, like we just talked about, right, and you see middle field open 11th most, New York Jets 16th most, Houston 5th most. What they're actually doing is post-snap, they're rotating out, and what they're doing is disguising middle field close and actually playing middle field open. That makes sense?
Yep.
So here's the thing, though. The league changes so much. Don't be surprised if we come out this year and those numbers are completely flipped, because as soon as you think you figured it out, they throw you a curveball, man. So hopefully that explained everything. I was going to get into some offensive concepts as well. I had a couple that the Packers really like to run here. The two most popular passing concepts. We'll hit it real quick. We're at hour 8. This is why I don't talk X's and O's anymore. We always go over on this. I'm a freaking nerd for this stuff. The 2 passing concepts the Packers like to run the most that I've learned studying the tape last year is slot cross, where you've got the number 2 running a crosser or a climb route, and the number 1 running a deep dig. That's called slot cross. When you hear me say slot cross, that's the passing concept we're talking about. And then dagger, where you send the number 2 on a non-route, a fly route, a go route, and you can bend that thing out and really make it kind of a non-fade, or you can turn it into a skinny post. Nonetheless, when you got the number 2 go deep and the number 1 run a dig underneath, that's what you call dagger. Those are the 2 that Matt LaFleur really loved to use the most. Now, they use a little bit of Haas as well, which will be the number 1 running a curl instead of the number 2 still running that go route, but with a Haas concept, he's just running a sit on that side. And sometimes that gives space out of the backfield to run a little stab route underneath. That makes sense. So just wanted to hit on those real quick, because I know you guys hear me mention when we're watching the tape, slot cross and dagger. And if it's not a chalk talk segment, I don't have the time or the ability to kind of draw that up because we're just using the TV copy. But just wanted to kind of point that out there. So there you go. A little bit of X's and O's, geeking out over the inner workings of the game, man. I love this stuff. I could talk about it all day. These are the things that for the longest time, if there's anything I have back when it comes to being a football fan. I wish I would have learned this stuff about 5 years earlier, because you see the game totally different now. You really do. But the big misconception, the big thing that we learned today is these defenses that Hafley may try to mimic when he comes in and he's talking about his NFL friends, we may end up seeing more shell coverage than we did even under Joe Barry. And that's the part that bothered me, because when you go back to when Joe Barry, remember the first year he took over as defensive coordinator, Devondre Campbell was an all-pro, all these things kind of fell into place. We were playing that Fangio quarters style defense more. And then as time went on, fans got loud. We started rotating into this single high look. Now all of a sudden the dude's out of the job. If anything, I bet if you sat down and you had a couple of daddy sodas with Joe Barry and you said, what would you have done different in Green Bay? He'd have probably said, I'd have stuck out my chest and said, everybody shut the hell up and let me run what I want to run. Because Fangio's defense limits explosive plays. We weren't playing Fangio's defense last year. We were showing a pre-high or a pre-snap shell look and rotating a single high all year long. So 5th most in the league. I'm going to be real. I didn't expect that number to be that high. I knew it would be higher than people thought. But when I seen 5th most, I went, dang, boy, they were not playing Fangio defense. So there you go. Parting thoughts, guys. We're at an hour, 10 minutes here, man. I'm sweating over here. I love this stuff.
I got
Jacob,
nothing, man. I learned a lot. This was great. This was great.
It helps to kind of have the quote unquote chalkboard, right, to put up there and visually look at it. And it helps me because sometimes when I'm explaining it, I find myself getting dizzy going on. You guys seen Waterboy, right?
Yep.
Remember when the coach is in there drawing up the play and he's going, he fakes. No, he pretends to fake. He thinks about faking. And he
wants to fake.
Yeah. And then he goes, I don't know where I am. He has to say that. If you don't have something to look at visually and actually draw, it's easy to kind of get discombobulated. I think that's the right word, Jacob. Look. What you got, Jacob, before we wrap up, man?
No, like Tim said, I learned a lot today, which is great. I think that people, when we do these deep dives, like put the ego to the side, like we talked about. If you're not learning stuff, what's that? That's the whole point when we started this podcast, was that it's going to be, we're going to try to educate the top-notch fan, the middle-tier fan, and the guys that are just kind of like just getting into the game. So it's a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't really necessarily have the avenue to ask these questions, to get it explained to them. You have to search out really intricate details if you want to find this. So I think that that's a great way of that we do it. And more than anything, man, I just am so excited about the talent on this team. We've looked at so many of these deep dives, which is a good thing to do in the off season. We're not talking about, again, ice cream flavors and what your favorite Pokemon is and blah, blah, blah. I think that we really have capitalized in this offseason, and it's good because as we go forward, the whole goal of this podcast was to make better, more educated Packer fans, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah,
it's good.
And, it's like anything else in life. I had about 6 years experience in concrete and steel work, and what I noticed there was 90% of them are fluff, and they try to make their craft seem more difficult and more complex than it actually is, because they want to add value to it. They want people to think I'm the only one that knows how to do this. And that's the last thing we want to do with this show. We want to, like I said, it's not about us educating people. It's about us learning together, all of us. Because every time that we have these conversations, I find something I miss. Every time we do a chalk talk, you'll see me. I'll have it literally the notes on the screen, and we get mid-play and go, well, I screwed that up. I screw stuff up all the time. And like I say, if you don't believe me, ask my wife. She'll be the first to tell you. So Eric in the chat said, versatility is key for the defense Hafley wants to run. Just look at the guys drafted on D this year. Amen. You went out and got 3 safeties that can rotate into the box and kind of play those hybrid roles. Everything about when you look at the stuff we looked at and you see how other defenses are playing with these hybrids and these big nickels and everything, like Coach Lynn said with Kansas City and Tranquil, the trend is going a little more toward nickel and dime and big nickel looks. And then you look at the way we draft and you take 3 safeties and you go, yeah, this makes sense. This makes a lot of sense. Jonathan Owens, we just let him walk, right? What was his big plus? Tackling, supposedly. Some would disagree.
Simone Biles.
That's a plus too. Yeah, got a little popularity up. But it was him kind of playing spurred, playing in the box. You let him walk. You let Devondre Campbell walk. You draft Edgerrin Cooper, right? A little more versatility there as opposed to just a traditional Mike backer. And then you go out and you draft these 3 safeties that can kind of play hybrid. I think like I said, man, you want to know where people's priorities lie. You look at their checkbook and their calendar. You want to know where a team's priorities lie. You look at where they spend their money in their draft picks. You go out and get Xavier McKinney, who can play a hybrid safety role. We've seen him cover the 2 in man coverage. We've seen him play post safety. We've seen him, play in a 2 high shell 2 versatility. And you go out and get these 3 safeties. I think that's what we're going to be seeing is more big nickel. So.
Also the 2 linebackers that are very versatile as well. Hopper and Cooper are freaking interchangeable.
Bingo. So. Yeah, absolutely. So I agree, Eric. Great observation there, man. Versatility is going to be key this year. Dave MX6 Garcia says Packers run dagger a lot. I'm pretty sure it was either dagger or Haas. You guys remember we watched the Saints game, and that huge play by Jaden Reed, the diving catch. He was the number 2 go. It was a go fade, a non-fade route, and it was either dagger or Haas. I think it was dagger where they had a dig underneath. There's also another one too. God, we're going to go for 2 hours, I swear. I just want to hit it real quick because it's another passing concept they ran, and it's a shallow cross instead of a dig underneath with the number 2 go. The dagger is the number 2 go with a deep dig over the top. And then what you also have here, I know I seen it earlier when I was going through the notes, snag. It's called snag. It's a shallow cross underneath with a number 2 go. It could have been snag in that specific play as well. Coach Lynn says, great job. Lots of questions answered. Hey, appreciate you, Coach. You bring a lot of credibility. You bring a lot of knowledge in here too, man. And we're very fortunate to have you as a viewer, as a listener, man, for sure. Yeah. Let's see here. What else we got? I don't know what Dave's means here. Clayton just pulled a McCarthy. It's just like anything. Oh, I guess I did. Yeah. McCarthyisms were, I miss those, man. He always cracked me up. The best one, though, when he came to the podium after they got boat racing the game, he said, very, very, very disappointed. We need that as a drop. Yeah, there you go, Rap. They ran Rap a ton in 2021, Coach Lynn. I've got the playbook in a book that was, I can't remember the author, but it was kind of a complete breakdown of 2020 and 2021. They ran a ton of Rap. You're going to make me fire up the telestrator. I ain't going to do it. Rap is number 2 sit, a number 2 curl with a number 1 dig behind it. So you got to force it. Creates a conflict in the defenders there. You got to bite on the sit or the dig, right? And again, I think it's called Rap because that number 1 wraps around the curl, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, there you go. Peace, bro, in the chat. Look at this skull. Okay.
Okay. What bothers you more, the championships or the Hall of Famers, bro?
Or is it the fact that you stole that from a Swedish soccer team?
Or, yeah, I was getting ready to go with the Eric route. Eric says skull is cold for no trophies. So, hey, appreciate you swinging through, Peace, bro, though. If you don't care, hit that like button on your way out, man. I appreciate it. All right, guys, we're out of here. We're way over. Yes, they are, Chris. Hey, all fans are welcome in here as long as they keep it respectful. There's nothing wrong with a little bit of banter. Yep. I think it's cool that we got Bears fans and Vikings fans that swing through from time to time. Detroit fans too. So I know Tim, they're on Tim's crap list right now. But
just a couple of them.
Yeah, just a couple that about got their nose broke at Lambs last year. So anyway, we're out of here, guys. Appreciate everybody hanging out with us. Tim, Jacob, thank y'all. This was a lot of fun, man. We'll do it again soon. You guys are going, I hope not, because I can't sit on here for an hour and a half again. But with that being said, we'll be back tomorrow morning. We may do a PTA in the morning. We may do a college football pod. We'll see what we got to talk about. College football pod was a lot of fun this morning, but we'll see you guys at 8 a.m. Central Time in the morning. Tim, help me out here, bro.
For those of you listening on the pod,
thank you for making us a part of your day. That's the number 1 job. I love it. As always, let's go out and be the change we want to see in the world. And go Pack, go.
The power sweep. Actually, it's the lead play in our offense.
We ask our YN or a tight end to open up somewhere between 6 feet and 9 feet. Get an isolation with the linebacker. Tell the tackle to take the defensive end if he's over him. If he's not, to drive down on the first man to his inside. If the YN has the linebacker taken out, he cuts inside. If the YN has the linebacker in, he comes all the way around. You look at this play, what we're trying to get is a seal here and a seal here, and try to run this play in the alley.